Hello and welcome back to World 360. Why is the Taliban wanting to join China's Belt and Road Initiative significant? What did the Iranian Foreign Minister say in a letter to the Vatican? And why has the decision by the US government to ease oil sanctions on Venezuela ruffled feathers? We explain this and more in today's episode. First up, the Taliban and BRI. Last week, China celebrated the 10th anniversary of its Belt and Road Initiative, or the BRI, in Beijing. Some world leaders, like Russian President Vladimir Putin, attended, and an invitation was also extended to the Taliban. This was the Taliban's most high-profile multilateral meeting that it had attended since grabbing power in Afghanistan in August 2021. This comes a month after China raised eyebrows after appointing a new ambassador to Kabul, which the Taliban acting foreign minister had at the time called a significant step carrying a significant message. So at the BRI forum last week, Taliban's acting minister of industry and commerce led the delegation. He reportedly said the Taliban administration wants to formally join the BRI and will send a technical team to China for talks soon. The Taliban have also previously requested to be a part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, the CPEC, which is the flagship section of the BRI. Now, back in May, Taliban acting foreign minister as well as the foreign ministers from China and Pakistan held a bilateral meeting in Islamabad where they pledged to further strengthen trilateral cooperation on security and connectivity. So why does all of this matter? For one, we know that the Taliban is desperate for investments in the face of Western sanctions. The Taliban is hoping to attract Chinese investment in its reserves of minerals such as copper and lithium. China, meanwhile, has been actively engaging with the Taliban frequently since its takeover of Afghanistan in 2021. And in June, Beijing's foreign ministry supported Afghanistan's integration into regional economic cooperation and connectivity. Now, the Taliban aside, Afghanistan is a key part of connectivity projects in the region. It is strategically located at the intersection between Central Asia, South Asia, and the Middle East. It is at times considered the center of Asia's connectivity and once served as a junction on the Silk Road. Had it not been for the political instability that has plagued the country for many decades, Afghanistan could very well have been an integral actor in trade and transit for the region in modern times. Take the Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India pipeline, which some may argue is a pipe dream today. The TAPF pipeline could have served as an alternative route for transporting oil and natural gas from Central Asia amid sanctions against Iran and Russia. Major regional players, whether it's India, China, or others, understand the strategic potential of Afghanistan when it comes to connectivity or infrastructure projects. The deposits of critical minerals in Central Asia make this country all that more attractive to regional players, as its resources have largely been untapped due to the political instability that has wreaked havoc in the country for decades. Striking mining deals with the Taliban could help major players like China make inroads into a vacuum left by the US after its withdrawal from the country in 2021. For our second topic, we're looking at what the Iranian Foreign Minister said in a letter to the Vatican. This comes days after over 500 people died in the bombing of a hospital in Gaza, and it is still not clear who was responsible for the attack. On Sunday, the Iranian Foreign Minister wrote to Paul Richard Gallagher, his Vatican counterpart, calling on the Roman Catholic Church to defend the rights and lives of the nation of Palestine. He pointed the finger at Israel, accusing it of carrying out the attack on the Christian hospital in Gaza. The Zionist regime's horrifying crime of attacking Al-Mamdani Hospital and the raiding of the historic church of St. Porphyrius in Gaza, where children and women had taken refuge, lay bare another aspect of the Zionist regime's brutal and mischievous nature, said the Iranian Foreign Minister. This shows that the Israeli regime implements systematic apartheid not only against Muslims, but also against the followers of all Abrahamic religions, including Christians, he said. On 17th October, a Baptist hospital in Gaza was bombed, resulting in a large number of fatalities and injuries, especially of children who were taking refuge there. It became the new flashpoint in the latest conflict between Israel and Hamas. The hospital, in operation since the 1880s, was founded by the Church of England's Church Mission Society. After the bombing, Israel was accused of being responsible for the attack but quickly denied the allegation. So far, 3 countries, Canada, France, and the US, have officially backed Israel and fended off allegations that it was responsible for the attack. US President Joe Biden, who visited Israel last week, said the attack was likely carried out by the other team. However, Arab leaders across the Middle East maintain that it was Israel that bombed the hospital amid its ongoing airstrikes in Gaza. Meanwhile, the Islamic Jihad, a rival group to Hamas, has denied responsibility as well. So while the Iranian Foreign Minister wrote to the Vatican, US President Joe Biden rang Pope Francis on Sunday. The president condemned the barbarous attack by Hamas against Israeli civilians and affirmed the need to protect civilians in Gaza, said a statement from the White House. It's clear that different sides are attempting to curry favor with the Vatican. Many Orthodox churches around the world have also made repeated calls for a ceasefire, but Western countries have not explicitly called for the fighting to stop. In fact, the US recently vetoed a draft resolution in the UN Security Council calling for a ceasefire, and the UK abstained from that vote too. Shortly after the hospital bombing, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, the primate of the Church of England, visited the conflict zone. He called for Israel's evacuation order on Gaza's hospitals to be reversed. The seriously ill and injured patients at the Anglican-run Ali Hospital and other healthcare facilities in northern Gaza cannot be safely evacuated. They are running low on medical supplies. They are facing catastrophe, he said in a statement. For our last topic, we're looking at the US's U-turn on its sanctions against Venezuela and how it's stirring up domestic politics in America. But before we look at this, let's track how the US has been slowly easing up on one of the most sanctioned countries in the world over the past year. In March 2022, after banning the import of Russian oil into the US after the break of the Ukraine war, the Biden administration sent a group of senior US officials to visit Venezuela. Not only is this South American country home to the world's largest oil reserves, it's a sanctioned country in the eyes of the US. Venezuela, run by leftist dictator Nicolas Maduro, has been sanctioned by the US on many occasions since 2014, mainly on the basis of human rights violations and mainly because Maduro has never been viewed by the US as a legitimate leader of the country. The visit last March, therefore, was the first high-level visit in years by US officials. Shortly after, Venezuela released imprisoned Americans, raising questions on whether this was a quid pro quo move. Then in December 2022, the US Treasury Department authorized oil major Chevron to resume limited oil production in Venezuela. In the latest development last week, the US lifted broad sanctions on Venezuela's oil and gold sector. This included a 6-month general license temporarily authorizing transactions involving oil and gas sector in Venezuela. This was done based on commitments from Maduro's government that it will conduct free and fair elections in 2024. However, the Biden administration still maintains sanctions against trade with Venezuela's state-owned company, Petróleos de Venezuela S.A. or the PDVSA. This has caused furor among Republicans in America who have accused Biden, the president that vowed to defend democracies upon resuming office, of coddling unfriendly oil-producing countries. Oil producers in American states are also furious. Recently, Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski criticized Biden for restoring a ban on oil production in some of Alaska's wilderness, while striking deals with regimes like Maduro's. Meanwhile, Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming said Biden is desperate for anything to mask the consequences of his reckless policies. Thanks for watching. This is Pia Krishnankutty for ThePrint.